Good morning. Or good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, good afternoon. It is now 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, and I want to welcome you. Welcome to the Forgiveness Workshop. So super excited to be here and to be doing this workshop. So it's definitely something that has been on my heart to do for a little while. We did our first forgiveness workshop 3 years ago. It's been a little over 3 years when we did the forgiveness workshop, and it was in person during that time. It was held at a library in the in Chicago. I was about to say in Chicagoland area, but it was actually in Chicago. It was held 3 years ago. It's been requested to do it again several times, and was put off a little bit. And, I struggled. It's like, oh, I got so many other things going on and all of this that was happening. And because of recent events and other things, that is really what led us here today. Just God placing it upon my heart, and just having certain things pop up, from when I work for, hello, my name is Kalita Barnes, FYI, also known as Kalita Javon. And so I do go by both. And so anyway, I work full-time for Veterans Affairs, and I definitely saw an increase of suicides between our 8 facilities, our 8 hospitals that my department oversees. And I saw an increase in suicides in the middle, you won't even say middle age, but young adults between 28 and 34, to also over 59, age 59 and older. And those were the 2 peaks of in our area anyway. So I saw that going on. I saw the increase of them happening in celebrities that you've probably have seen in the news and things of that nature. So I saw those things, and those were a couple of the things that also, weighed on me, of like, maybe it's time, and so this conversation that we're having and during this workshop, it's not, if you had suicidal ideation, that is, it could possibly be addressed, but we are not healthcare providers. Okay. So we're not healthcare providers, but we are people who care. And so I'm going to actually, I was going to read a disclaimer. Disclaimer is neither Elevate to Thrive or its contributors shall be held liable for any improper or incorrect use of information described and or contained herein, and assumes no responsibility for anyone's use of the information. But pretty much all of that is to say is, we're people who care. We're not healthcare providers. We will have some resources going out. The thank you that comes out after, it will possibly come out either this evening or tomorrow morning, which would be a thank you for attending the workshop. So if we have your email address, so those who've registered, because I know that the link did go out with the flyer. So some people might be here because you just saw the flyer. Some people actually went to Eventbrite and actually registered. Those would be the people who would actually get any information, resources, and things of that nature coming to your email. So if you have not registered, I would encourage you to definitely do so. Definitely go to Eventbrite and register. It's not too late to do that, because we do want to send some information out to you. So yes, we will have a number of different resources that will go out a little later on. The other thing, as far as logistics, we're going to handle a little bit of logistics. So with logistics, we would love to see you. Thank you for those who are already on camera, but we would love to see you. It's definitely something about being on camera and being present that, you know, does something for your participation, for it does something for the speaker, and just it's connection. It's another source of connection, especially being so far away. So if you can, it's no pressure, but have your camera on. Please keep yourself on mute until it's time to share. We definitely believe in the power of sharing. So there will be times to share during our time together for today. And so, you know, keep yourself on mute until then. Please utilize the raise your hand button. You know, use that button. It should be at the bottom of your screen, depending on if you're on a computer or a phone, but use the raise the hand button to, if you want to actually speak. You could also conversate in the chat as well. So if you do agree with something, you got a question about something or whichever, all of that is definitely welcome. I do want to introduce you to someone who's going to be helping us with the chat and bringing extraordinary customer service, Ebony Rose. So I don't know if you can see her, but she is a powerhouse of a young lady and brings so much energy and encouragement, and absolutely adore her. And she is here to support as well. So when we do have FAQs, we will have as far as logistics of some things, we have a number of things going on and impactful in a short time frame that we're going to be here. So we're only together for 90 short minutes. And so we have a speaker that will be speaking. We have a panel discussion. We have a time period for questions and answers. So if you have something that comes up for you, please write it down. Have a notebook and a pen nearby so you can jot those questions down. So that way, when it's time for questions, you remember whatever question that you might have and you want to share, or if you have something to share. If you do have a question that comes up and you want to be anonymous, you can send that direct message to Ebony. Ebony Rose is her name. You can see her in the participants. If you don't actually see her on screen right now, you could see her in participants, Ebony Rose. You can send a private message to her, so it won't be public. You can send a private message to me if you want to be anonymous. Other than that, you can definitely utilize the chat, and you can also take yourself off mute. If you raise your hand, you can verbally ask your question as well. We, of course, welcome that. So just want to go over, make sure that is it from our logistics. One more extremely important thing that I definitely wanted to go over. So to get the most out of this workshop and being present, the best practice really would be to stay for the entire duration. We want you to stay for the entire duration of this workshop. It's 90 minutes. It goes by really short. So it's shorter than a movie. So definitely do that. Be alert, take notes, participate. Those would definitely be some things that would be best practices, so that way you can get the most out of this workshop. Okay. So also, if you did not notice, this is being recorded. So, we will, just the FYI that this is being recorded for any of those who might have missed that little alert or box that popped up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with intentions. So since this is, we have a short period of time together, and I definitely want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you for being here, for each and every single person who was on this line. I want to acknowledge you because you could have been doing so many other things on a Saturday afternoon, so many other things you could have been doing, could have chosen to do. whether you've come here because you have something in mind, like something that might have been on your heart or you're burdened with, or whether you just came because someone invited you, whatever is going on, there was a reason or something that drew you here. And we definitely want you to get value out of today, and to for you to be able to have some things to take away, some takeaways to, be able to use in your journey in life. And so with that, we definitely want you to be intentional about your time here. So we definitely would like for you to have something in mind. So whether that is perhaps a person or people that you wanted to either forgive, if something been weighing on your heart, because those are people who maybe either whether they've done something that need to be forgiven for, or whether you have been the person and you are seeking forgiveness, have those names in mind, or if that could be yourself. Sometimes it's ourselves who might be in need of forgiveness because of perhaps some things that we might have done, or perhaps, you've been hard on yourself because you wish you were further along in life, or where you might have said, okay, I wanted to be here, and you're not there. And so you've been beating yourself up, or you've been carrying something, you've been carrying that burden. Maybe it's yourself that is in need of forgiveness. So whichever way that it is, but I want you to definitely have someone in mind. So as we're talking and having these conversations and certain things come up for you, that you can be able to address them and have real life experiences, real life situations, and be able to walk away from this with whatever your next is, whatever that next action should be for you. Okay. So with that, we would like a few people to share. So if possible, to come on in on the line and share what is your intention for today. And don't everybody raise their hand all at one time. So I see a hand raised, Pam, and then Kimberly.
Hi, just checking if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
What I'm looking for, I signed up for this, is forgiveness, to try and forgive somebody that is in my family, as in my daughter's boyfriend. Some things had happened back in December, and it's definitely weighing me down. It's been a burden. I need to try and forgive him to be part of my daughter's life. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Pam, for sharing. Okay, Kimberly?
My intention is to be able to expand my abilities to forgive. And so not just myself, but my relationships, with God, money, time, abundance, all those kind of things. And really opening it, just let the floodgates of love rain down on me. That's my intention.
Awesome. Thank you. Ernest?
Good evening, everybody. My intention is to definitely try to add some value on this topic to everyone, but more importantly for myself, to receive value from the other speakers and from everyone that is here, the other participants, because we're all on a learning journey and none of us know all of it. And so although I'm here to speak my mind on some of it, I'm also here to receive. And I thank everyone for being involved.
Thank you. Thank you, Ernest. Okay, awesome. So, and with that, yes, we are all on a journey.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm trying to raise my hand, but I can't find a button. This is Anna.
Okay, come on in.
I wanted to try to learn how to forgive myself for past mistakes. And I wouldn't even call them mistakes. I would just say the part of my journey in the past where I didn't necessarily have the knowledge or the know-how of what I know now, but I'm still kind of beating myself up for decisions that I made back then. So I guess forgiveness of myself. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, so that is actually is great that we're actually about to go into one other thing that I wanted to bring up and to kind of address before we bring on our speaker. So I thank you all for sharing and definitely being vulnerable. Is that we all need each other. That's one of my true beliefs, that is to the heart of me, is I do believe that we all need each other, that we were placed here for a reason, and we are not alone. We're not alone. We often sometimes feel like we might be, or like we're the only one that's going through whatever we might be going through. But I can guarantee you that there are others, when we share and we do open up about whatever that is that we're carrying, that you will find others that, yes, we are a community. Community is super important. So, but you will find others that is in the same place, or sometimes can find others who've gone before you. They've been through it, so they can help, teach you, guide you, to the next, whatever that next is, or perhaps them sharing about their healing, or sharing about, what helped them, what got them through, that it pours into you. So if there's, I definitely believe in the power of sharing. That's something that I do believe in, and specifically being that, yes, we do need each other. And going back to what Ernest had mentioned is, we're all on our own journeys. I am not an expert. Hello. I'm not an expert. I don't believe, there are some of us that might be further along on certain journeys than others, but we all have our own journeys. And so that's the main reason why we need each other, right? We need each other for that. So thank you for sharing once again. We're going to move on to another part of the conversation that extremely important one is, and that speaks to some people who shared already about forgiveness of self. So there's two areas to look at forgiveness, and forgiveness of self, as well as forgiveness of others. And in regards to forgiveness of self, we're going to go over some steps, and I might have someone who is very knowledgeable, that we've talked about this just briefly earlier, and she probably might feel like she's put on the spot right now, is actually Kimberly Genovese. We've talked about a conversation regarding completion once before. And so this is slightly different than that. That's why I might have her come in this conversation. But what I would say about it in regards to integrity, it would pretty much be an integrity conversation, in my mind anyway, because oftentimes when we are in a space where whether you feel stuck, whether you feel someone's not on mute. Perhaps you might feel guilty about something. You're carrying something. You feel heavy, weighed down, whatever is kind of going on regarding, it might have been something that you either said you would do and you did not do it, or you knew to do it and you did not do it. You might have said, hey, I'm going to take the kids to Chuck E. Cheese, and you didn't take the kids to Chuck E. Cheese. You said you was going to be at this meeting and you missed it. You might have either said to someone else that you were going to do something and you didn't do it. You could have said something to yourself, like, I'm going to lose some weight, and you didn't do it. You said, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start to meditate in the mornings, and you didn't do it. And or it could be things that you knew to do. You knew to do these things and you didn't do it. So it's first acknowledging those things, whatever it is that you might have either said. Sometimes it's running in the, you're so out of integrity because you've been on autopilot all your life. You might not even be aware. I know for me, the first time I had a conversation about integrity, I was, what is that? I really did not, it was just like, if I was 5-10 minutes late, I made it. That's good. I did not come from, even though I have people in the military in my house, or not in my house, but in my life, in my family, there's been people in the military, but I have not had that military upbringing, whereas like you have to be someplace before time is on time. If you're there at 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock is late. In military time, you were supposed to be there at 12:59 or before. And so I wasn't raised that way. So you should be happy if I came at all. So that's where my mind was at before, until it was like, what is that? And so in looking at that and looking at things for yourself, is what are those areas for yourself that you may have been out of integrity? Because it does have impacts. It has impacts on you, yourself, and it has impacts on others. And some of those impacts on yourself could be feeling guilty, being ashamed. Perhaps if you had that meeting that you were supposed to be there, at XYZ time, and you came in, maybe now you came in the back of the room. You didn't want everybody to see you. So okay, I'm going to not raise my hand because I want to bring attention to myself. So now you're not even giving of yourself or whatever you could have contributed to that meeting. People are missing out on you. So, anywho, I wanted to bring Kimberly into this conversation, so I'm not going to just take all of it, but go ahead. I'll allow you to share, Kimberly.
Well, first of all, thank you, Kalita. And it was awesome to get to listen to you, just kind of like set the stage for everyone. So to be responsible, Kalita, how much time do you want me to spend on this inside the workshop? Because I'm clear. And I love that you said it's no more than the time of a movie. Because I love movies.
So,
and I'm like, oh, this is great. Better than a movie.
We have 7 more minutes on this, but okay, we can be flexible.
No, 7 is
what's needed to land is what's needed, Yeah,
and I'm going to trust you then to listen for it landing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, hello everyone, and just really thank you for letting me have this opportunity to share with you a little background on me. And my beautiful partner is in the room, which is really exciting. But I am one of the founders of the Kimbra, and our focus is to provide incredible spaces for people to expand their key 3 resources, which is time, people, and money. So it's a real privilege for me to get to be here. And this particular topic I have been immersed in literally for the last 9 years of my life. So I'm thrilled to be able to give it to you. And it's going to be really simple. And when Kalita brings up the word integrity, I'm curious, and you just pop yourself off of mute. Tell me what you hear when you hear the word integrity. Just popcorn share real quick in one word.
Character.
Thank you. Character. Got that.
Workability.
Honesty. Workability. Honesty. More honesty. Good. Anything else?
A person of your word.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Great. Because I really wanted to make sure I could hear there's no morality in the word integrity for you. In this particular conversation, I'm not saying morality and ethics and that whole world doesn't exist in a conversation about integrity, but not this one. Not the one that Kalita is offering you today in the world of forgiveness. The word integrity in this conversation is all about power and restoring your power. power to be able to forgive yourself, the power to be able to forgive others. Okay. And so I'm asking you to really push aside any other conversations you have about the word integrity. And I'm actually not even going to use it because I know how triggering and how much energy can be attached to that. And I'm only going to focus on, this is a process that Kalita is offering you to restore your power to be able to love and have affinity present for yourself at the deepest level and for others at the deepest level. And it's going to give you power in knowing yourself as word. And when I say the word I mean it with a capital W. And I am a woman of God, and so I will speak to that. Kalita, do I have permission? I don't want to go there if it's not comfortable for people. And so I'm really inside of like who you are as a spiritual being and access that you have to the level of love and forgiveness that's available. So with that, is everybody ready to hear the simplicity of this process? Because it's super simple. Yeah? Okay, great. So the first thing there is you promised X by Y. Okay? And this is going to apply across the board. This is as fundamental and simple as we can break it down for you. Okay? The second you're aware that promising X by Y is not going to happen, it does not occur to you as a done deal, whether to yourself or another person, you get in communication. The second it happens. Okay? Now, here's a little side note. You actually allow, when you speak that into existence, that you own that you're going to honor your word, right? You might not be able to keep your word, and that's how you honor it, by getting in communication. You actually open up the space for the universe to come rally with you and create a miracle. I've seen it a gazillion times. Okay. So this little step right here, I love that Angel is like, oh yeah. And of course your name's Angel. Is it Angel? Okay, great, of course. Of course, right? All right. So that's step one. Is everybody clear on the first step?
You have something in your camera.
Oh, look at that. I do. It's okay. Thank you, Kalita.
So step one is, if you know you can't keep your word, just immediately saying like, hey, I can't make it at this time, or I can't.
Yeah, Ebony, thank you so much for putting that clarity in. It's not so much that you can't, but it is now occurring to you as not a done deal.
Okay.
This lovely plant wants to come play with y'all. Okay. So it's literally like, I'll give you a perfect example. I was supposed to be somewhere, and the traffic was horrible, and I'm like, oh, I am not going to be able to be on time. What you want to actually be saying is, it looks like I'm not going to be able to be on time. I'm letting you know that I might not be able to be on time.
Okay.
Okay. And then boom, I'm telling you, almost every time I do that, I actually not only end up being on time, I get to be on time the way Kalita said, like I'm actually early.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy. Cool. Okay. So don't bring any resignation into it. It's very simple. It's just very straight. The moment you think it's not going to be a done deal. Okay. And thank you, Ebony. So step two is now let's just say you weren't your word then, right? Like that's the first step. And you weren't your word. Now you're going to go clean it up. And what we mean by cleaning it up is restoring that power. Okay. You're taking everything out of the space, whether it's your shame or guilt or self-masochistic ways, or making somebody else wrong, that there was some reason outside of yourself that you weren't able to do what you said you were going to do. Okay. So that is where you actually own exactly what happened and exactly what didn't happen. Is that clear? All right. And then you literally want to allow yourself the opportunity to get the impact of not being your word. When we're talking about impact, we're talking about being in the discovery of it. Again, removing any kind of sense of make wrong for yourself or others. And if make wrong's there, own that too. Okay. Any questions on that part?
Could you give an example of step two?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to ask Kalita to give an example.
Okay.
Yeah, our star.
So,
You guys like just go mock it? Like, could you guys just mock a
We could
interaction?
totally mock it. Yeah.
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 That would be awesome.
I'm so excited.
Okay. So an example, I guess, of how I put it, or how my thinking of it is to really kind of just identify what it is the make wrong is. Like whatever it is something that happened, you said X, that you were going to deliver that by Y, and it didn't happen. So perhaps, yes, what she first mentioned was getting communication about it. So if you said, hey, I'm going to be there by 5 o'clock, and man, here it is, 4:47. There is no way I'm going to get there by 5 o'clock. Let me pick up the phone and call this person and say, hey, such and such a, man, I'm not going to be there by 5 o'clock. My ETA is actually 5:30. So it's actually being in communication. But what she's referring to, as far as like, let's say it's already something that's happened.
Yeah,
It's something that's happened.
late. She got there.
So already, yeah. So you're already late. Or maybe you missed it all together because you overbooked yourself, because your calendar was all a whack and you wrote something on a sticky note and you totally forgot about it. That's happened to
So
me.
Kalita, let's role play that out. That's what she's
Yes.
asking. What happened? You showed up at 6 o'clock. Go ahead.
Okay, I showed up at 6 o'clock. So I want to, first, I'm acknowledging that I'm super late. Kimberly, man, I'm a whole hour late to your party. Whole hour late. So I'm a whole hour late. The impacts on me when I was rushing, I was driving fast, almost, ran a light, and who knows, just missed getting into an accident. I was just possibly, because I'm late, I'm running late. And impacts on me was just being frazzled and rushing, and just being frazzled, and also being out of integrity. Impacts on you is, man, you expected me to help out, and I was supposed to like help set up for this party, and I wasn't even there to set up. And so now that put all the burden on you and XYZ. But going forward, I would definitely make sure that I give myself ample enough time, and I'll be there like an hour early.
So good. Did you get that, Ebony?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, and what we're really pointing to here is what's key critical is you want to come to these kind of conversations, no kidding, naked and unafraid. Okay, like really, like putting it out there fully.
When she means naked, what I would say about the whole naked expression would be, well, I would just say a blank page. So how sometimes we have in the back of our minds, like somebody, this person. Oh, I know that they're going to say this, or they're going to be like that, or blah, 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 because you've known them all your life. Without that thought process, whatever that thought process that is going to be like, why should I even apologize? Why should I even say something? I'm not going to call her because she's going to already be like this. And I don't have time for that right now. No, those thoughts, take them, move them to the side, because you're going to come with a blank slate.
Wow, that's powerful.
As vulnerable, straight, and authentic as you possibly can be. And you're owning 100% of it. 100%. If you take nothing away from this process that we're giving you, it is to remove any excuses. Listen, do you like it when people come to you when they've not been their word and they're telling you all the reasons why they weren't their word? Right? No, there's no power in that. This is all about restoring the power and the love and affinity inside of whatever happened or didn't happen inside your word. Okay, good. Helpful?
Very.
Yeah, and this is just my little piece, okay? Have fun. I have a sign in my house that says, what if the hokey pokey is what it's all about? Okay? Like, really? The power of forgiveness is it sets you free to be fully alive and enjoying what life has to offer. Right? The world out there is serious enough. And quite frankly, we contribute to the seriousness of it because we're going through life making it all so intense all the time. Okay? All right. The next step is inside the impact. At some point, there's something and once you start doing this, something will resonate for you that actually has that be unworkable. Like you're like, no, that's never happening again. And that really is the power of you getting the impact. See, without impact, transformation is not possible. We're so hardwired to go a certain direction. And if we don't get the impact and really let it in, not like a make wrong, just a what so, then there's no room for that immediate transitional, transformational shift. So let it land until you got it. Because the power of that is something that you've done your whole life could disappear in one conversation. Okay? So then in that discovery, once you're present to the discovery, this is the next step, is to put in a structure, because that's really all that's missing, for in the future for you to be your word. And it's a moment by moment gift. It's a true gift that you give yourself and you give the other person because they actually got to be part of that process. And I promise you, wherever you weren't your word, that other person, they're going to get the gift of getting to watch you walk through this. And I promise you, they are dealing with the same thing. So there's going to be a new level, a new grounded, restored level of love and affinity and power with that person, especially if it's yourself, that you can't access any other way. Okay? So that's the next step, is to then see what that structure is, put it in, and then ask the other person. And again, if it's you, I strongly recommend you do this in the mirror. Get really grounded with yourself and give yourself permission to love on yourself. Okay? And so you simply ask, is there anything else incomplete? And when you ask that question, be asking it not just of the other person, but of yourself. So you want to make sure both of you are fully restored power. And if there is anything incomplete, then you just walk yourself through the process again until you're at nothing. And this is the last piece of it. This is a critical one. Allow both of you, and if it's you, right, it's you and the person in the mirror, to declare it restored. Integrity is restored. That's kind of like sealing it. It's the seal of what you just now created newly. And that's the process.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you. I appreciate you. Hope you guys got some notes in there. If you do have some questions, we're still waiting for FAQs, okay? So just give us a little moment for that. I would like to bring up next our speaker. Our speaker for today is doing a brief speech to share with us regarding forgiveness of others. So Ernest James, Mr. Earnest James, I would like to bring him up. If I could find you, see if we could spotlight you. There we go.
I don't know what happened, some kind of changed. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I can't see anybody. Hold on a second. All right. Thank everyone for being here. Thank everyone for this opportunity. Real quick, if you don't have a piece of paper, a pen and paper available, please grab it. I know our time is limited, so I'm gonna try to give as much information as I can real quick. So I would hope that everyone writes down what they can. That way, we can get the most out of the time frame that we have. Again, first of all, let me say my name is Earnest James. I am the host of Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where my guest and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our life. I'm also a mentor, a minister, a fatherless daughter advocate, and amongst other things. I'm definitely grateful for this opportunity to be here to speak with you all. Thank you, Kalita, for having me, and Elevate to Thrive. And most of all, thank you all for being here, because it shows growth on your part that you're taking out the time to invest in yourself. Because a lot of times we invest in different things. We invest in cars, clothes, and money, and all these things on the outside. But we rarely do we always take the time to invest on the things that's going on the inside, which is really what makes the impact in our lives. So again, thank you all for being here, for taking the step to invest in yourself. So briefly, before I get started, as I was listening to us, as we were sharing, one of the things that came up was being able to forgive yourself. And while this wasn't a part of my original presentation, I just want to drop this in because I think it's very important. So when we're thinking about forgiving ourselves, we want to look at the word self as an acronym. Okay, so we want to look at the word self as an acronym, which is FELF. And so when we're considering forgiving ourselves, the first thing we want to look at is the S, which is think about the season of life that you were in when you made the offense, right? And the season of life can be several things. If we just want to go by age, how old were you when you made the offense? So you might be having a hard time forgiving yourself now that you're 45 for something that you did when you were 25. So you have to acknowledge the season of life that you were in when you made that offense, right? So the second thing is the E. Recognize the emotional space that you were in when you made the offense. Because depending on what we're going through emotionally, that affects our actions. So a couple of years ago, when my mom passed away, I was an emotional wreck. So some of the decisions that I made at that time, I may regret now. But if I take in consideration the state, my emotional state at the time when I made that offense, then it's easier for me to forgive myself for doing it. The next one is the L. The L is for limited information. Recognize the limited information that you had at the time that you made the offense. Me, myself, for example, the last couple years, I've really been getting into personal development, learning more about myself, how I think, how I operate, getting in touch with my emotions. So the information that I have just concerning myself now at 45, I didn't have when I was 25. So when I think about now, and that's one of the reasons why it's hard for us to forgive ourselves for things that we did in the past, because we're judging ourselves for the person that we are now. We're judging ourselves from the viewpoint of who I am at 45. And I'm looking at my 25-year-old self and saying, you should have known better. No, I shouldn't have known better because I'm not 45 yet. I don't have I haven't gained those years of experience yet to make me to be able to look back on myself and make that decision. So the L is for limited information. Recognize that you had limited information at the time of that offense. And lastly, which is the F, which is forgive by remembering that you are doing the best that you could at that time. Remember that at that time that you made the offense against yourself, you are doing the best that you could, the best that you knew how to do at that time. And because now you know better and you can do better, you can forgive yourself for what you did in the past and move forward knowing how to make better decisions in your future. And I hope that was helpful for someone. Again, that wasn't a part of my presentation for today, but yet and still, I hope that it was helpful to everyone.
We actually have a question in the chat for you.
Okay.
So Inez was curious. It says morality has a distinction between right, wrong, good, bad choices. How can a person restore integrity and forgive around yourself and someone being
So-
out of integrity?
We'll do that questions during
Oh,
like
sure.
FAQs later. So we
Oh,
can just
perfect.
notate
Okay.
that one for later. Because
Cool.
it's probably
Okay.
more of a question for Kimberly and I than Ernest.
Oh, no problem. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Give me 1 second. All right. So I'm going to get into the what I'm going to talk about today, and we're going to talk about forgiveness. And so Webster's dictionary defines forgiveness as to cease to feel resentment against an offender, or to grant relief from payment of debt. And so by that definition, I can understand why forgiveness is hard for us. It's because we feel that the person who we are looking to forgive owes us. They owe us something. They have did us wrong, and so they owe us a payment of happiness and healing from the hurt that they caused. And it's because they haven't paid that debt that we feel some type of way. And we feel some type of way because we want to be compensated for the pain in which they caused. And we want to collect on the payment that we feel that they owe us. And so we become sort of like an emotional collection agency. And we're trying to collect our healing from a person who has no intention on paying us what they're owed. So they treat us like we treat collection agencies. They ignore us, they avoid us, or they simply don't pay us what we're owed. And we're left carrying a bag of hurt, of pain, and of unforgiveness. And the problem with carrying unforgiveness is that it enslaves us. And it becomes like a ball and chain around our legs, which we continue to drag throughout our lives. And since we are the ones that's dragging it, we are the ones that are affected the most by it, not the person who we haven't forgiven. And oftentimes, the person who has offended us has moved on to offend someone else. And they're not even connected to us anymore. But we're still carrying the offense with us. And therefore, we have become enslaved and chained down from the hurt in which we endured. Unforgiveness weighs us down, and it holds us down. And not only does it hold us down, but it holds us down so its friends can also jump in and jump on our back. And who are the friends to unforgiveness? It's hurt, it's shame, it's depression, it's mistrust, it's feeling like you're not enough, it's feeling like you're not good enough. These are just some of the friends of unforgiveness. And trying to shake off unforgiveness alone is a hard thing. And so when unforgiveness friends joins in, it can seem impossible. So where do we start? I'm going to share with you a couple points that I think that is important. And I believe that if we utilize these points, it'll be a start for us to begin to learn how to live in forgiveness. So the first thing that I want you to write down is, I need to forgive in order for me to be free. I need to forgive in order for me to be free. Unforgiveness weighs us down. And the burden of unforgiveness is too heavy for us to continue to carry. It beats us down mentally, it beats us down emotionally. And when we start to suffer mentally and emotionally, it will begin to affect us physically, because the things that's going on our inside will always begin to show itself on the outside eventually. And that's why sometimes people have strokes, they have heart attacks, they have mental breakdowns, because the things that's going on the inside is beginning to show up on the outside. And unforgiveness hurts everyone. But forgiveness is a gift that we give ourselves. And I know that oftentimes we hear that, forgiveness is for you and not for the other person. And that is true. Forgiveness is to release yourself, because unforgiveness is a chain that is put on us by other people, but it's chains that we don't have to be bound by. So the next thing I want you to remember is that the key to freeing yourself from the chains of unforgiveness is making a decision to forgive. The key to freeing yourself from the chains of unforgiveness is making a decision to forgive. And I need you to make a decision to forgive and not a choice. And the difference between decisions and choices is a decision is definite and choices are conditional. And you must make your choices on how they align with your decisions. So I'll give you an example. If I am in a relationship with someone, then my decision is that I will be faithful to the person that I'm in a relationship with. And because that is the decision, is definite and it does not change. It doesn't matter who I'm with. It doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter what's going on around me. That decision does not change. So when I'm faced with a choice of whether to entertain someone else outside of my relationship, then I hold up that choice against my decision. How does it line up with my decision? So entertaining someone else goes against my decision, which is definite, which is to be faithful to the person that I'm in a relationship with. And therefore, I make that decision not to do that because it goes against, I make that choice not to do that because it goes against my decision. And so when we are making a decision to forgive and we decide that we are going to be a person who forgives, then it does not matter what the offense is. It does not matter who is the person who offended me. I have made a decision to forgive. And therefore, no matter what I face, I hold that choice up against that decision and I decide to be a person who forgives. The next thing I want you to think about is forgiveness does not lessen the offense, but it frees the offended. It does not lessen the offense, but it frees the offended. So no matter how big or small the offense is, we still have to find a way to forgive. And choosing to forgive doesn't take away how we feel, because we may be justified in our feelings depending on how much we were affected by the offense. Someone may have lied to us. They may have broken our hearts. They may have abused us verbally. They may have abused us physically. They may have taken something from us or destroyed something of ours that was valuable to us. And therefore, we are justified in the feelings that we have toward them. Yet and still, if we want to be free, we have to find a way to forgive. And now that we know that we need to forgive, now that we know that we hold the keys to unforgiveness and that forgiveness does not lessen our offense, we need to determine what it is we want to do with the relationship in which we are forgiving. And when we're speaking of relationship, it is not just talking about a romantic relationship. It could be any kind of relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or a kinship. Oftentimes, we forgive the person who hurt us, but now we don't know how to interact with that person when we're around them. We don't know if we want to stay from around them. We don't know if we want to engage with them. We don't know how we're going to react when we're in their same space. And so we have to predetermine how we want to handle the relationship after we've forgiven the person who's hurt us. And so write this down. We must decide if we want to resolve, restore, or release the relationship. We must decide if we want to resolve, restore, or release the relationship. So when we're talking about resolving a relationship, to resolve simply means to make things right. It means you deal with the fact that you were hurt, you acknowledge the pain that you felt, and you choose to forgive. To resolve the relationship can be hard because you may have to do it without any involvement from the person that you are choosing to forgive. And oftentimes we want closure in our relationships. We want the other person to admit that they were wrong. We want the other person to say that they're sorry. But sadly, we don't always get that apology. So if we're going to be okay with just resolving the relationship, we have to be able to forgive them and to move on. The next thing we want to think about is if we want to restore the relationship. And this does require some action on behalf of the other person in order for you to remain in the relationship. So after you have resolved and forgiven your offender, you have to restructure your relationship to minimize the ability of it happening again. And one way you do that is by you setting boundaries, and the other person has to respect those boundaries. And don't be afraid to set boundaries, because boundaries do at least one of three things. Boundaries protect you from others, they protect others from you, or they protect you from you. So boundaries are necessary in any relationship, but they are definitely important when restoring a relationship. And lastly, we want to figure out if we want to release the relationship. There will be times that after we have resolved and after we have forgiven, that we will still need to walk away. Sometimes the hurt and the offense in which we have forgiven has caused too much damage to the relationship itself, that the relationship can't be saved. And it may be because the person who you forgave offended you again. That person may not have taken responsibility for their actions. And that person may not show any remorse for hurting you in the first place, let alone hurting you again. And when we see that even after being forgiven, the offender continues to offend and doesn't seem to have any changes or any signs of changing, we have to be willing to walk away for our own peace of mind. And so to recap, we need to forgive in order to free ourselves from the chains of unforgiveness. And the key to unlocking those chains is making a decision to forgive. And we realize that forgiveness doesn't lessen the offense, but it frees us as being the one who's been offended. And in our forgiving, we want to determine how we want to continue in the relationship with the person who hurt us. Do we want to just resolve the offense and move on? Do we want to restore the relationship? Or do we want to release the relationship and walk away? And when we consider these things, we can begin to live a life that is full of forgiveness. Thank you for your time.
Amen.
And thank you so very much for that, Ernest. Thank you so very much. And actually, we're going into our panel discussion right now. And we have three wonderful people who will be on our panel, as well as Earnest James. So we'll actually have four people on the panel for the panel discussion. So some of the questions, I saw that we had a few questions in our chat. This will also be the time period that you can ask your questions as well. So you can start getting those questions ready, as well as if you do have a question that you wanted to raise your hand, you can also do that as well. So I would love to bring to the table our panel. So we have Miss Latasha Brown. Latasha Brown, snap, snap, snaps. And she's going to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. This has been amazing already. I don't know what much more to add, but this has been really filling. But just a little bit about me is that professionally, I am a mental health practitioner. I counsel at-risk youth ages 18 to 24 that may have had some substance abuse, some community violence, disengaged in high school, haven't really gone back for their high school diploma. And also I work as a adjunct professor at North Park University. I have my undergrad and master's in counseling and psychology. And so I'm giving back to that and actually teaching human development, lifespan development. And so I love to actually just stay in the circle and the cycle of counseling and what the behavior and what the mind is doing. Spiritually, I am a pastor and a first lady of Abundant Blessings Church. My husband and I pastor a church in the Inglewood community, which is right down the street from Kennedy King College. And so we do a lot of spiritual guidance with our parishioners, those that may have had some trauma, those that may be experiencing depression, those that may have some marital issues. And so I get an opportunity to pour in spiritually and professionally. And also I have a Christian counseling business called Advancing the Family, which is taking a Christian approach to therapy. I think people need God therapy and not just the spiritual side. I think you need that component as well, because sometimes there's some genetic things going on, those some biological things that's happening that is generational in your family. And so my husband gets to talk from the biblical perspective, but then I get to share if there's any clinical things going on and really provide resources to others. And so besides that, that's a little bit about me. I'm an intercessor. I'm an author. I have 2 books that I've written, and one book I wrote, He Is Just Like a Relationship, and it really discusses really what Ernest talked about and touched on today. I was in a broken place, really bad relationships, failed relationships, and I was not equating relationship with God to my relationships with men, and God had to show me how to forgive. He had to show me how to trust again. He had to show me how to communicate, healthy communication, how to love again. I don't believe you can have healthy love if there is no level of forgiveness. And so I've written a book called He Is Just Like a Relationship that touches on forgiveness. And then I just finished a book on prayer, on how to bring your things that God has already done for you into the earth realm. I think sometimes in the church, we're afraid to pray because we're comparing ourselves to those that are in the church that are seasoned, but God honors all of our prayers. And I think even with forgiveness, it starts a little bit in prayer, but I'll leave it at that. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm grateful to be on this platform with all of you.
Latasha, what are the book titles?
He Is Just Like a Relationship.
Okay.
And the other book is 31 Days of Prayer. I'll put my website in there so you can go to the website, and the books are there. Cool. But these, I will show a picture of what they look like.
Awesome.
Part of what we're going to send out as far as the thank you for those who are registered. And so if you joined late and you're not registered, we were definitely encouraging others to register, because I know the link is on the flyer itself, so you may not have actually registered, but we definitely want to capture your attendance, and we will be sending out some resources. And so the links for all of the panelists, any of their information that you can possibly follow them and things of that nature will be in those resources as well. So just to know that. So it's coming. So register, please go to the Eventbrite link to register if you've not done so. And I would like to bring up our next panelist. There's no specific order, but I'm going to bring on Nate Imani Rue.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I thank God for the workshop. Just real brief, not too much information. I'm a minister, and I'm with the church called Friends for Life Covenant Church in Flossmoor, Illinois, and I'm also an author. I wrote the book, The Prisoner of Unforgiveness, and I also wrote another book, which is on relationship, and that one is titled A Healthy Relationship Perspective. And I do counseling, and yeah, I'm just glad to be on this panel, and ready to answer any question that is available. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad for all of you who are also in attendance for this workshop. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Awesome. And next we have Peace Udechukwu Izeka.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Hi.
All right, so sorry, I'm kind of helping out in the background, trying to add people into the spotlight. So sorry for that little delay. Again, my name is Peace Udechukwu Ezeka. I just really want to acknowledge Kalita right now because I'm so excited for her. She knows I've been pushing her like, we gotta do one of these again. So I'm so, you know, I don't know, I want to say kudos or just congratulations. And, you know, I'm just very excited for you. I'm excited for this workshop because it's such an important topic. For me, it's kind of hard to talk about myself, but I will do as best as I can. So I am many things, you know, but, you know, I am someone who was created to cultivate kingdom thinkers. And with that, you know, entails a lot of different things. I know like the specific people I'm called to you know, to cultivate in this aspect. And, but my background basically is, you know, education. That's my bachelor's degree. And greetings from Nigeria, everyone too. So if my video goes in and out some way, somehow, just know that it's just how the network is out over here. So anyways, just background really quick is education is my BA, my master's degree is in mental health clinical counseling. I currently do work as a director of leadership development at the Life Development Center, which is connected to my wonderful body of Christ in families, the City Light Church. I am also an associate pastor at the City Light Church. I have a social enterprise called Pure Unity, which is mental health focused and also focused in bridging the gap between African and African Americans. And we do basically some consulting work around that. And we believe identity is a big issue. You know, it's a big thing when we talk about just mental health. And also a social entrepreneur with a line called Peaceful Touch of Ankara, which is basically taking sort of like this fabric, this is the Ankara fabric. So it's like a touch, you know, you put a touch of the Ankara on different things. And there's also that aspect of, you know, raising funds for all the things that I'm up to, along with my partner, and, you know, and bridging that gap between, again, African and African Americans. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Future definitely author. So I'm just really glad to be here. And in terms of the topic of forgiveness, you know, Ernest, thank you for, what you shared, and also the integrity piece as well, which was just, it's so important. Those pieces were so important. Your nuggets were just like on point. So thank you for that. But forgiveness is like, it's like the foundation, it's like the foundation of who we are as human beings. Like that's our peace. That's our, that's where our freedom comes, what I'm saying? For those who are believers, like it's just that forgiveness. That's what was given to us. And so we have the, like, there's really no other, trying to get the words right. There's no other existence without understanding forgiveness, because otherwise you're trapped. You're like in a rabbit hole trying to get out. You're never going to get out until you learn and understand forgiveness. And for me, I usually say that I've been blessed in terms of forgiveness, because just at a young age, I feel like God kind of just, taught me early in terms of what forgiveness is. And it's just like freedom. It's freedom, because you begin to understand that I am you and you are me. So we're one and the same. So if I'm hurting you, you're hurting me, and then, as you continue to grow in that forgiveness, you understand, like, you can actually see other people's pain, because their pain is your pain. We're all going through the same, we're all going through the same stuff in different seasons and different times. And so forgiveness is such a key thing. And so I'm really excited to have this topic, to be here and be a part of the panel. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to get moving to these questions, okay? Because that's, we have some questions in the chat, and I also have some questions as well. So, but we'll address the questions in the chat first, because, we want to hear from the community, what things you have on your heart that maybe you need an answer for, or need some help with, guidance for, things of that nature. So we're going to go ahead and move to the community's questions. So, and another thing that I would like to point out is Inez had brought up that the Eventbrite link is closed. I believe that was a time that was put in there. So darn, the Eventbrite link is closed. But if you did not register, please send us your email. You can DM us privately, whether it's myself or Ebony, and we will capture your emails. So that way we can make sure that you get those resources. Within the next 24 hours, you'll be getting some resources, which will also have our speaker and our panelists information, so you can follow them if you wanted to plug in with them, or if you wanted to plug in any of the resources they have. As far as I know, we have a couple of authors here. We have someone who has some counseling services and things of that nature. So you will have that information, as well as a couple of other things too. So that will be coming via email. So with that, let's dive in. Ebony, what's the first question?
Sure. So the first question was, I think maybe this, like you said, it's directed towards Kimberly, who shared earlier, but it says, morality has the distinction between right, wrong, good, bad choices. How can a person restore integrity and forgive around yourself and someone? Let me see here.
I mean,
sure, go ahead. That might be better, sorry.
So one thing, I saw the definition of, I know there's a difference between morals and morality, and I was looking at the definition for morality, and integrity is one of the synonyms for it. So I was wondering, what is the difference? What can you distinguish the difference between morality and integrity? Because the thing is, I know when the gentleman was speaking about our conduct and everything, one of the definitions of morality is basically centered around the conduct and restoring that. So I just wanted to get some clarity around that, because I know when I talk to people about integrity, they say, oh, but that's just nothing but morality. But then when I looked it up, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right.
No, it's not. And
no, it is. So, but morals is different.
Morals.
So yeah, morals is different. So that's what I wanted to get some type of clarity on. And because I know morals is, oh yeah, the
So,
bad
yeah,
behaviors.
when I hear morality, and this is not me going and looking at the dictionary, but when I hear morality, and then especially in the same context of integrity, and the conversation of integrity, is oftentimes we add a lot of meaning to things. So somebody stepped on my foot and I made it mean something because they stepped on my foot. They knew that I had these new shoes on and this and that and the third, woo woo. And then we can go all the way left of what we might make it mean, or this person is bad, or this person, you know, was out to get me, or whatever things that we make it mean sometimes when it might not mean that, you know. So in regards to the adding meaning to it, is that good or bad, you know, whether it's morals or whichever else. That's what I'm hearing regarding a conversation about morals, morality, within the context of integrity. Are you still there?
No, well, I mean, I can understand integrity around performance, around the example you guys were given earlier. But when it's someone that wants to forgive, like their spouse or their partner, say they went out and had an affair on them, or they did some harm to them. So that I can see where emotions will kick in. So that is where actually where I'm coming from with that, where it comes when people want to forgive someone for some some things that may have something may have been done to them unjustly, things like so that's where I'm coming from with that. But I do understand as far as the performance part, like if I'm late and I didn't, I called to restore my integrity, blah blah blah, things like that.
So
Your emotions
okay,
can
so
be
you're
part of
speaking to, like, if something was to happen to somebody, like if there was abuse or something of the sort that was going on. And
exactly.
okay, so in regards to integrity and having so when we brought up integrity, and the reason why it was important to, like, how do you have a conversation around forgiveness and not have a conversation regarding integrity, in my mind anyway, was specifically when you're looking at self, because we can only control us. We can't control nobody else. And so, somebody can do something, but how do we react to it? How do we move on from it? How do we heal from it? Do we continue to allow it to hold us and keep us in some type of way? It's almost like being stuck. So in the empowerment is regaining that power back, is looking at, okay, I can only control myself. So the two conversations that I want to separate in this is the conversation around forgiveness of self and forgiveness of others. And so when we brought up integrity, was definitely around in forgiveness of self, or it could be if, let's say, you did something to others and you were seeking the forgiveness from. So in that, perhaps it might have been something you did or you didn't do, you knew to do, or whichever, whether it was for yourself, you said that you were going to do something and you didn't do it, or whether you told someone else that you were going to do something and you didn't do it. Then what are the steps regarding integrity of how do I restore myself to being in a powerful state, or not being trapped or stuck by whatever guilt, shame, and everything else that might be going on mentally because of whatever I might have done or I might have did. And so that's one conversation. So in regards to if someone else did something, you might have no control, especially if someone was a minor and something bad happened to them. How do they have any control over that? They don't. They have no control over that, of what would have happened. So what would be there for them to restore? That's why it's two separate conversations. in regards to those two type of scenarios. I don't know if that helps any. And if anybody else wants to chime in or offer something during this conversation, can also do so as well. I don't know if that helped in the separation of the two or not. In regards to the morality, making it mean something, and integrity.
Well, I don't think morality is actually making, well, it's not making it mean something. It's just a distinctions, basically. And that's what it is. Morals is making it mean something. So that's what I was talking about, the difference. But well, I don't know. It's just, I think it's the same thing. Morality, integrity are the same thing. After learning more about it, getting more clarity on that in what I do when I coach, because I know emotions are involved in what I do, but when I did get clarity on the difference between those two with morals and morality, I saw where integrity was there. And being in conversation about integrity, it's also being in integrity with everything, even morality, even values as well.
Do you have like a specific something that you are dealing with that you want to talk about?
No,
Right.
I'm saying what I just said was when I'm in coaching with people, when I coach people,
Yeah.
and when I coach people about is involved with love and intimacy. So emotions are definitely involved.
Yeah.
But everyone's different, and I can't get into such scenarios about it. But I saw the difference in morals, morality, integrity, ethics, values. I've seen the difference. That's what I'm saying. So, and then I chose to get clarity on all of those things so that I know how to be effective and come in powerfully with these people on that level.
Okay. Well,
I am muted. I'm so sorry to jump in because there are so many great questions. Kalita, you are a rock star. There might have to be a part 2 where we go into self-forgiveness.
Right.
But the only thing that I'll say about that is morality speaks to the rightness and wrongness of a thing. So Kira mentioned rightfully that morality adds to it the sense of judgment. The tricky thing with conflating morality with integrity is that judgment adds a layer of shame. So if I told you I was going to be there at 1 and I'm there at 1:45, if I make my lack of integrity the same as a morality issue, it will inhibit me from speaking to you and saying, hey, I'm actually going to be late. Hey, actually, can we make sure that this doesn't happen again by helping me schedule things? Actually, so when you add morality, when you add a moral judgment to integrity, it actually inhibits you from being authentic and transparent and communicating openly, because your lateness turns into I'm not a good person.
True.
Versus integrity is saying the truth is I just happened to be late today. It doesn't make me a bad person that I overslept, that I didn't schedule things, but morality is either you're right or you're wrong. And that's why I like the distinction between morality and integrity, because integrity, like Kira was saying, is objective. You're either late or you're not, but it doesn't attribute a moral judgment to who you are as a person.
Amen.
And why it's important not to attribute that judgment is that shame keeps us from being honest. That shame keeps us from following up. And that shame keeps us from being who we really are, which is a person that makes mistakes sometimes. And that mistake could be as easy as not looking at traffic early or something of that nature. So in some instances, I do believe it's important to delineate morality and integrity, because we don't realize we're judging ourselves and keeping ourselves in bondage when we add a rightness or a wrongness to our inability to do things as perfectly as we would in our most planned or perfect world. And that's all I wanted to say.
Amen. Joyce, please be on the panel next time too. But so the next question in the chat that was asked earlier, what methods of forgiveness would our speakers recommend if you're pissed at humanity? And I think there's a part 2 to it. Let me scroll down here. And I think it's like systems. So she said, added to the last question, humanity and systems really. So not a specific person, but something less tangible. So what would you recommend? How to forgive humanity and systems?
Well, excuse me, briefly, if I can say something, on the simple side, I guess if you can want to call it simple, is going back to what we learned when we were little, which was the serenity prayer, which is, Lord, give me, help me to, I can't even remember exactly how it said, but help me to recognize the things that I cannot change the things that I can, and, the wisdom to know the difference. Because when we talk about the systems of the world, how can we change the world? As a whole, we can't change all the systems. So we may not be able to change the whole world, but we can change our world, because our world is objective to how we see things and by what we believe. And so by learning more of the things that we want to believe, and the morals and the intentions and the integrity and everything that we want to hold for ourselves and hold ourselves accountable for those things, then we change our world, in the midst of the world as a whole.
Amen.
Yeah, I was going to go along the same lines as Ernest, but with just saying, you really have to look at self first. It's like you have to get really aware of who you are, because when you get aware of who you are, like I mentioned earlier, you begin to see yourself in other people. And when you begin to see yourself in other people, you see that we're one and the same. And so instead of it being forgiveness, you start to see compassion. And when you start to see compassion, that now compels you to take action in terms of, like, okay, I got to start with myself. Like, you really start to become aware of your integrity. You really become aware of how you're really treating people. Are you actually walking in love? It's not just talking about it, but it's actually being it, like actually visibly people seeing it and you're reflecting it. That's a level of integrity that we're trying to all get to if we really look deep down inside. And so that forgiveness comes from that place of, how I see it is like you begin to see other people in your eyes, like I'm you and you are me. And I feel like a good example of the whole pandemic and how the whole world is affected. It's like we're all affected, like just like that. Something can affect all of us, and we're all in the same. We're all in this together. We're all feeling these same experiences, and so the emotions that we talked about earlier, which is so huge. Being able to now gain that emotional control, but that's probably a topic for later. But so yeah, so it's really starting with self is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, since you mentioned self, then there's another powerful question asked earlier. She said, how do you begin the steps of forgiving yourself when you continuously keep self-sabotaging yourself in that way? To help further understand what I mean, it's like that little voice in the back of your head continues to tear you down. Even when you try to consciously forgive yourself, I can't seem to silence that voice.
If I could just kind of answer that from a spiritual perspective, just a little bit. I thought that was a great question. I think we all have at some point experienced that in trying to release forgiveness. And I think the most important thing is first to really just ask God to forgive you in your heart. I think it's a heart issue. So sometimes I think the key word in the question was consciously. It's different when you're trying to forgive yourself in your mind opposed to your heart. If you're trying to forgive yourself in your mind, it's going to always keep coming back up, right? It's almost like willpower. It's like me saying, I'm not going to eat any chocolate cookies, which is my weakness, all week. But then if I don't really keep the cookies out of the house, if I don't really be intentional about not stopping at any restaurants that could possibly, engage me in cookies, it'll come back up because that's the willpower. I'll fall short. But when you really release something in your heart and you say, God, please forgive me, or if you're asking for forgiveness for that person, but in your case, Stacey, please forgive me for what I've done. And God said he will forgive us quickly.
Amen.
He will forgive us. And what I love about God is that he says he'll forgive us, and then he throws it into the sea of forgetfulness. And we don't really do that as humans. And so when you really release it in your heart and give it to God, he wipes us clean as a clean slate. He purifies our heart. And the enemy is really what you're talking about in that question. The enemy will come back up and try to rewind our past. He got this VCR mentality. He'll try to keep rewinding your past of what you've done. We've all sinned and come short of the glory of God, but God is a forgiving God. The Bible says, I believe it's in Matthew 18, the disciples was asking Jesus, like, how many times are we supposed to forgive? And Jesus really, when I did the math, he said 490 times in one day. He said 70 times 7. And 70 times 70 is 490 times in one day. And we have to we can't allow the enemy to live in our minds rent free. We can't allow him to keep rewinding our past of what we've done. He's trying to keep us in the cesspool of what we've done. And God is not like that. God said he is not a God of condemnation. The Bible says that we have to cast down those things that try to exalt themselves higher than him. And so I would just encourage you to really just go back and cry out to God, or, to if you're a spiritual person, or to the heavens, and really just say, God, I need you to take this out of me. I want to be free. I want to be purified. I don't want this to haunt me. I don't want this mind to keep this enemy to keep bringing up my past in my mind, because what it does is it stops us from purpose. It stops us from, as everyone has already mentioned, freedom. It really stops us, Stacey, from being our authentic, true self. And so we have to be quick to forgive. And I think we have to manage being able to forgive, because not only are we forgiving ourselves, we have to manage being offended by other people. And if we're people that wear our emotions on our sleeve, we won't make the right decision. So I really just encourage you to just seek God and just say, Jesus, help me, or just get in the community like this and do some, I usually tell clients, do some affirmations, create some I statements for yourself, Stacey. So when that little voice comes up, all you got to do is say, I am beautiful. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am somebody. I am, Jordan and Justin's mother, or, whatever it is, you got to affirm yourself. And the Bible says, whatever you speak, there's life and death in it. And when that little voice come up, denounce it with the affirmations.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that it is 2:32 Central Standard Time, 3:32 Eastern. And I know we've only allotted 90 minutes for our workshop for today. We really could have gone for 3 hours. And so I do want to acknowledge, for anyone that does have to go, we can, for those who want to stay and maybe get those last other questions answered, we will allow it to continue. But I just wanted to kind of declare our workshop complete. I do want to acknowledge each and every single person who joined the workshop today, and that took the time out on a busy Saturday afternoon to actually do something for yourself. So I want to acknowledge you, pat yourself on the back, because this was amazing, absolutely amazing. And being vulnerable and sharing, and even being vulnerable and asking questions. So thank you for that. And I declare our workshop complete. We will go ahead and it was a great suggestion, Joyce, of doing a part 2. We might need to actually officially have a part 2, but we will stay behind for those others who have a few last questions that wasn't able to get answered just yet.
Lita, could I also say, if any of you were touched, which I'm sure a lot of you were, if you can write maybe a sentence or two, where should they send it to if they have like comments about the workshop?
I'm gonna put an email right in here.
Yeah. And express in there, yeah, if you want to see part 2 and 3, 4 and 5.
And thank you for that. Actually, I did want to inquire, like if it was laid upon your heart that you would like to be a part of this, if you see a part of a vision of something that is growing, we do need people. So we do. So this is definitely that call to action. So if you want to participate, get involved, please also send me a message via email or DM me. You can call me, whichever way you would like to reach out. That email is there. It's elevate.to.thrive@gmail.com. You can send me a message there. Elevate to Thrive is also on Facebook. You can also send me a personal message. Kalita Javon is my handle for Facebook as well. So reach out any type of way.
Lita, can I say something real quick?
You surely can.
I'm not a professional typer, so I was trying to type in the comments. Someone asked for the acronym for self. But what I am going to do is the complete my complete message that I had today. I am going to send it to Kalita, and it will be in with the resources that we're going to send out with the email. So all of that will be in there, and I will make sure that I include the acronym for self and anything else that I can add to it as part of it. So make sure that you guys reach out to Kalita with that email, that with your email address. That way you will be able to receive it.
Amen.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, so Ebony, do we have another question? That was
Jay Jenkins said her question was answered by what was shared. So yeah,
that's one of the marvelous things that often happens is in a conversation, you sometimes, even just being quiet and not even saying anything, sometimes your question, your internal question might get answered, or someone else can possibly bless you because they're in the same place as you were. So it's, miraculous that way.
If it's okay, could I just go ahead and just say something really, really quick, if it's okay?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
All right. Let me just say, first off, the spirit is amazing. So you're absolutely correct about that. Like, to get my question answered, and not only that, but from the person that I actually wanted to answer it. It's kind of, and also how the spirit introduced us to each other. I want to thank you so much for the invite. This was great, and more people should know about this. I think that this could be really, really helpful for a lot of people. But my question was kind of answered. It was almost, it was something like this. Acceptance is a form of forgiveness. So I am not one of those people who are actually looking for forgiveness from someone. I don't feel like I have been wronged in any way, but I have a lot of life trauma, okay? And especially over the last 2 years. The last 2 years, I have lost about 16 family members, my brother, my father being one, my significant other at the time. I watched my kid go through something traumatic. He had a heart transplant a year ago. So just like now I find myself, and I don't know if it's forgiveness or acceptance, and I just wanted to know if anyone had any insight to how I could get through this grief. I find myself kicking myself. I think I'm a good person. I do what's right, but I find myself now just like feeling resentment. I'm angry. I blame people for things. I have ghosted friends, and not that anyone has done anything. It's just like I am having trouble with acceptance. Everything has gone on. Everyone has been buried. My son has his heart now, and we should be good. I should be happy. But I'm finding myself just not not necessarily forgiving, but not accepting, if that makes any sense. So I'd say it was kind of answered in the sense that, yes, I do understand that I should go to God with these answers and these questions and these things, but it's I don't know, sometimes it feels like it's not enough. I did want Ms. Brown to answer that question because she does come from a therapeutic and spiritual combination. So I mean, if you have anything, is there something with grief, acceptance of grief and forgiving yourself?
Yeah, I think you kind of, without even knowing, you really hit some things on the head. In therapy, there's 5 stages of grief. And the stages, they're in no particular order, but one of them is denial.
Mm-hmm.
So there's times in your life where you will experience this denial because it's a loss and which you've experienced. And so, our heart goes out to you. You're not alone in that. I think we've all been through a lot in these 2 years of this pandemic.
Yeah.
It's lost a loved one, whether it's lost wages, time, opportunity. And so we've all experienced that. But there's 5 stages of grief. There's denial, there's anger, which you mentioned, there's acceptance, which you mentioned, there's depression, and then there's bargaining. There's times in your life where you may accept the person's death, right? And then 2 days later, you may be bargaining, which means you may be saying, I could have did this. What if I only had did this? Or I should have did more of that. And what we call that is bargaining. And these are emotions that are going through our bodies. And what I like to tell a lot of clients is that emotions have memory. That's why you're triggered when, if you've, no offense to anyone, but if maybe you were molested and this person was this type of a person, or like a male figure, and they look this way, you could run into a coworker that looked that way, and you'll be triggered because the emotions, they have memory. And so you're experiencing stages of grief that will continue to happen. And again, they're not in any order. You may be angry one day, you may be accepting one day, you may be depressed one day, you may be in denial of the situation, and then you may do some bargaining. And so I never try to put a limit on what grief looks like, but I would encourage you to definitely not only pray, but also, if you have a church community, get in that community. And then also find a therapist. I like to tell people a lot of times you need Jesus, you need the Holy Ghost, you need the church, and you need a therapist. All of that is important. And so I would just really encourage you to find someone that you can find a safe space to really share your emotions. And then lastly, I'll say, when you have that emotion, whatever stage you're in, if you're feeling depressed, or you're feeling sad, allow that emotion to come up, because God gave us emotions, right? He said you can be angry, but sin not. So the emotions are there. But I think a lot of times what I see people do is they suppress the emotion that they're experiencing, and then it turns into anger. It turns into irritation, frustration, suicide, because we've suppressed it. So I try to tell people to really embrace it and maybe do some mindfulness. Just wake up in the morning, or if it's gratefulness, and just be grateful for one thing, even though that person is no longer here. Maybe find one thing to be grateful for that will help you to balance and offset the emotion that you may be experiencing.
Thank you for that. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Can I add something real briefly? I know Kalita put it in the chat, but one of the things that I encourage all of us to do, especially in our community, is to look for a support group. When my mom passed away, when my mother-in-law at the time passed away from cancer, 3 years after, my mom passed away from cancer also. And so going through that time period of my life, I was in, a very bad space. And one of the things that I did was I got involved in a bereavement group. And that allowed me to be in a space with people that was feeling what I was feeling, that was going through what I was going through, and walking on that same journey that I was walking in that present time. And because of the healing that I received during that time, I went on to start a nonprofit organization and to hold bereavement groups myself for people in our community, because I know that we need it, you know, and oftentimes it's not addressed. And I always say that God allows things to happen in our lives for a reason, and sometimes we don't know why. So when I think about that, I think back when I was probably about probably like 17, 18 years old. And I remember this day like it was yesterday. Me and my cousin, it probably was like 11 o'clock at night. We go to the corner store, you know, just to pick up some things from the store, and two guys walk in. And it's a little shorter guy, you know, and then it's another guy that's with him that's like huge, you know, and he's like big, he's muscular, you know, and the big guy is crying, like literally crying. So you already know something is wrong, because you got a grown man in public, a grown Black man in public, and he's crying. And he's not a small man, he's a big man. So you're looking and it's like, why is this huge man crying, right? And so they get in line to get some things from the register, and there's a little line there. And so I'm behind them, and the bigger guy is crying, and the younger guy is trying, the shorter guy, should I say, is trying to console him. And in the midst of his crying, he's saying, I don't know, you know, why, you know, what happened, whatever. So from my outside opinion, I would believe that it was maybe definitely a female, but maybe his mother or someone who had passed away, and he was hurting because of that. And just in those few seconds that they were there, he got so taken in his emotion that he took his fist and he punched the top of the register or the top of the counter. And he was like, I just want to get some cigarettes, you know? And so everyone that was in front of him kind of like stood back, like, get this man some cigarettes, you know? But that stuck with me. And like, I'm 45. And I remember that story like it was yesterday. And the reason why I think God allowed me to remember it is so that when I got into that space where I was at that bereavement group, I remembered that man. And I remembered if he had this same type of space to be in, to express himself and to deal with his hurt and also learn the stages of grief, you know, that would be an outlet for him. So definitely I would encourage anyone to make sure that, you know, we look for those outlets, we look for those support groups, we look for that help, whether it's therapy, group setting, or whatever it is, to not only to, you know, get our spiritual help, but definitely get our natural help on the other side to help us go through the things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Amen. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Do we have any other questions? Not sure if we had any other questions in the chat.
Yeah, I didn't see the other.
Does anyone else have any other questions they wanted to ask during this time? Nah, I might just ask a couple questions that I had on my list. if the panel is okay with that. So are there incidences when forgiveness should not occur?
Well, I'll chime in briefly. I would like to say no, not unforgiveness, because again, unforgiveness is the gift that you give yourself. And when you don't forgive, you carry a burden that you are not meant to carry. And that burden that doesn't affect the person who offended you. Again, they're going on to offend somebody else, you know what I mean? And it's not hurting them one bit at all, but you're carrying that hurt, you're carrying that stress, you're carrying, you know, whatever it is that that's affecting you personally. And so for your own health and your own mental health and your own emotional health, you have to forgive.
One thing I would like to also bring up, I was watching this question really arose from me watching a video on YouTube. And this lady was basically, she mentioned kind of the opposite, which was kind of interesting. So that's why I'm bringing it up. She mentioned that yes, there is a time when you may not, you're intentionally not choosing to forgive temporarily. And it's temporarily is kind of how it was put. And she used the example of being in a domestic violence situation. So oftentimes, sometimes we'll be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're choosing to forgive. We're choosing to forgive, but then that's also putting us in harm's way. Because perhaps the answer is you might need to get and remove yourself from this situation, especially, you know, whether it's for yourself or your children or whichever. Perhaps the response may be that you need to go to safety. You need to actually hold on to that little anger or whatever it is that you may have that you're holding on to actually give you the power to move, to give you the strength to do whatever change that you might need to make. And yet, you know, you don't want to stay there in that space. So when you are, maybe it might be a little bit down the line, maybe it's a year later, maybe it's whichever time later, that yes, you do want to release, you do want to not hold on to you know, unforgiveness, really. So that's one of the things that was brought up, and I thought it was a little interesting, so I kind of wanted to bring it to the table. And so yeah.
Just briefly, let me say this. I think I seen that video. And I did like it. I enjoyed her viewpoint, but just reflecting on back to what I said earlier, with predetermining what you want to do with the relationship when you forgive. So in that case, that would be one of the examples of where you want to forgive, but then you also want to release that relationship. So, you know, whether you release first or forgive first, you know, that's up to you. But if it's that, you know, you want to forgive, but definitely release that relationship where you're not continuing to put yourself in physical harm.
And then too, I just wanted to add this. I just want to kind of share just from that perspective is that I think that, and everybody's kind of talked about forgiveness and freedom. And if I could just share a very transparent story, just one of many, but I was in a very domestic violent relationship in my 20s. My middle name was BITCH. And I thought that this man loved me. I came from a 2-parent home, very sheltered, Catholic school, and my parents were making all the decisions for me. But when I got with this man, things changed for me. It was very mentally, emotionally abusive. And honestly, that's really what drew me to the spiritual life that I have. It really drew me to God, because even though my family was there for me, waiting for me to come out of that situation, as Ernest said, I actually wasn't trying to release it at the time. I thought this was love, but I had nobody else to go to, but to guide me at this time, but God. It was a new relationship with God. And I'm like, how do I get out? My family was like, we'll pack you up, we'll move you out of there, and you get a restraining order against this guy, and that's it. And I did what they told me, and it didn't go well, because he came to my parents' house, he bust windows out, he poured sugar in the tank, you know, he stalked me on my job. And so after taking their advice, I had nowhere else to go. And so that's when my relationship with God began. And I'm like, God, what do I do? How do I really move out of this? I was in a soul tie with this man. The sex was great, if I could be honest. That was the only thing we had going in this relationship, and it kept pulling me back. But I knew that he was toxic for me. I knew he wasn't right for me. And so I had to really just step back and go into this, to learn how to just be guided by God and find that church community that really was the additional support along with my family to help me to come out. I didn't want to forgive him for what he did. He almost cost me my job. I had a brand new car that was no longer working because sugar was in the tank. I had to really release that thing. And then before 20 years before that, my biological mother, I witnessed her death. A man that was mentally ill came into our house, who was a neighbor of a family and stabbed my mother 57 times and raped her. And I had to help put this man behind bars. So I had been carrying unforgiveness in my life for a very long time. I carried it that my father wasn't there to protect my mother. Then I get in this abusive relationship and I held on to all of this unforgiveness. And it wasn't until I really began to cast it upon God that he began to show me what my true identity was. Because when you're holding unforgiveness, the Bible says that we should not hold no wrong accounts of wrong against people, as Ernest mentioned earlier, somebody else mentioned earlier. And that stuff was holding me down. It started getting into my health. Bitterness starts sitting in my bones. And you can't have true physical health without mental health. You cannot disconnect them. They go together. That's why your body is weak. That's why sometimes we on medication. You know, sometimes we got all these things going on in our body because some things have happened to us in our childhood that the Black community has told us to just wipe it under the rug. Forget, you don't tell your secrets to other people, but we need to be able to get free. It wasn't until I released and forgave that man for killing my biological mother. He left me without a biological mother. I didn't know what it was like to have a mother and a father, but I missed what it was like to know who Darlene was. But I had to release that. I had to release that relationship that was toxic. And when I finally began to release and forgive, then I started finding true identity. Then confidence began to be built in me. I didn't know where it was coming from, but I knew that it was God. So when you forgive, you're not doing them a favor, you're doing yourself a favor so that you can build confidence and you can find purpose in life.
Amen. And what you said, Latasha, about the Black community, how a lot of times we're told to keep secrets and things like that. I think another thing about unforgiveness is, yes, we have systemic racism and systems in place to hold certain people down, but even the collective holding on to that unforgiveness against white people or those systems, I think is toxic too. So.
Absolutely, it becomes generational. It just keeps going. It goes into every other part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for sharing and being very vulnerable of your story as well. So thank you for that. Do you feel that forgiving is minimizing the offense? I don't know if someone want to take that question on.
I want to hear Nate speak. Nate.
Oh, you're muted on.
Okay, sorry. Forgiveness is not minimizing the offense. Forgiveness is removing the offense from existing in your heart. Now, I want to give you, I looked at I was looking at the list of questions that you had. I'm talking to Kalita. I was looking at the list of questions that you had, and but based on this question, I'm going to give the answer. I'm going to give the definition of what, now there are variations of definitions of what forgiveness is, okay? But I'm going to give my version of what I believe true forgiveness is. Now, it may not make quite sense when you first hear it, but you really got to think about it. So forgiveness is putting you back, because you're the one that is offended. When you really forgive, that forgiveness is kind of like a reset. Forgiveness is resetting you back to how you were, your frame of mind before you became offended. If that makes any sense. Now that's the short version. It's basically resetting you back to how you were before you took offense. So it's a reset. When you truly forgive, the forgiveness puts you back in the same frame of mind that you were in, and it causes you at that time to no longer look at the person who offended you as you used to look at them after you were offended by them. In fact, it takes the offense from you and it puts it way behind you. So it's no longer in front of me, because when you look at the person, you always think of what they did. You always think of what they said. You always think of what they did. But when you truly forgive a person, because that reset takes place, the offense that was in front of you now goes behind you. It's like, let's say somebody who defaulted in a mortgage. And so when you go for a modification, they take whatever you were owing and they put it in, they put that, all the payments that didn't make it, they take that payment during the modification and put it behind the loan. So forgiveness is taking the offense from in front of you and it's putting it behind you. It's not that you forget what was done, what was said, or what offense took place. You still remember it, but it doesn't affect you like it used to. So you're completely free from it, that you're able to go about your regular life. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Was that clear?
Yes, you were. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So very much. So I do want to also acknowledge that we are now officially a whole 30 minutes over our actual time. So I do want to, I know we have more questions on this list because we had more just in case, you know. So we will probably have to do either a part 2 or something of the sort to continue the conversation. This is definitely a needed conversation. You know, it's definitely a needed conversation, and it's just really a start to a conversation, because we should be having more conversations around things of the heart and things that matter, things that you know, when it first came up for me, it really was a godsend. It really was something that God placed upon my heart 3 years ago. And I did share a little bit earlier in regards to looking at statistics, looking at some things regarding my job and a series of events that was going on, and seeing the increase in suicides. And even now, the increase in suicides. And we've had a whole pandemic going on, and we've had a lot of stuff that's been going on regarding, you know, whether it's depression. There's so many changes. Humanity, we tend to not like change, you know, any type of change. You know, it's like, okay, stress levels go up and different things end up happening, but we're always changing. Things are always changing. And yet it's even more so because of the pandemic, of some people not being able to go places, staying at home, the change in even being able to go out, you know, whether you can go to certain events or not, or there's so many things that's been changing. So, and during this time period, so there's all kinds of things going on. And really, to me, having a conversation regarding forgiveness was definitely a key to answering a lot of that. And the things that we carry. the things that are going on, whether it's mentally that ends up turning into physically going on and dealing with our health and things of that nature. So this is definitely a conversation to have, and we want you to plug in. Definitely plug into a community. We will send the resources out. If for whatever reason you're having any type of suicidal ideation, please call the hotline. There is a suicide hotline that is going to be part of the resources. There's going to be actually a whole bunch of different numbers that you can call for different things. There's a youth line. There is something for military. There is something for, so we try to get a number of things covered. So that is going to be in that resource that's going to be going out, as well as if you wanted to connect with our different panelists, as well as our speaker, their connections are going to be on there as far as how to plug in and follow them, as well as if you see, yes, we are in the United States. So where are you from, Pam? Yeah, so Canada, yay, we got Canada in the house. so yes, plug in. We would love for you to also plug in with Elevate to Thrive. You know, we would love to do more things like this, and answering different things, classes, as well as workshops and things of that nature. If you see it in your heart, as far as you would like to contribute in some type of way, whether it is in the front scene or the behind the scenes or any type of help, if you have ideas and various different things, we definitely want to hear from you. So please email us and let us know as well. So the email was in the chat. If you did not register, once again, if you did not register in the Eventbrite, we may not have your email address, and we want to make sure that you get those resources. So please send a DM or put your email in the chat so we can capture that information and make sure that you get that resource packet. Okay, so with that, I am declaring our call complete for today. Complete. Thank you all for your time and being able to join. Love each and every single one of you. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing on this line as well. So thank you. Thank you all. And I'm going to stop the recording.